Welcome to the Tech and Accent podcast.
Here you learn about being an expat, working abroad, technology, and more from no-native English speakers. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech and Accent. I am Walmyr and today I have the pleasure to have Giovana Zortea today here with me. How are you doing, G?
I'm good. Very nice to be here with you, Vava.
Thank you for being here. So, Giovana is a friend of mine and of my wife as well. She lives in London in the UK and she works in the tech industry as a Brazilian. So I decided that it would be very nice for her to share a little bit of her story with us. So, Gi, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience so we can get started?
Sure. So as I said, my name is Giovana. I'm Brazilian from the south of Brazil. I've been living in London for 7 years so far. Here I work in tech in a company that does infrastructure or digital infrastructure for banks, managing product operations for them. By product operations, we mean best practices, reporting, cross-department coordination, and tooling is part of my department as well. I work on the product side, paired with a team of engineers.
And what exactly is your role in this company?
The name of the company is Farm 3, and my role is Head of Product Operations as a title.
That's awesome. It's really nice because usually the people that come to our podcast, they're more in the engineering side. So it's nice to hear from someone from the product side as well. One thing that is not in our agenda, but I think it maybe is important to mention because people that listen to the podcast, sometimes they are interested in living abroad as well. And there are people that come to our podcast that they go abroad to work with a visa sponsorship. In your case, you have an Italian citizenship. Is that correct?
Correct. In my case, I have an Italian citizenship and I arrived in London before the Brexit had determined that would not be possible permanently for Europeans anymore.
Yeah.
So I live based on that permission.
And did that made it easy for you to move abroad? Because some people think, oh, if I have an European citizenship, I can move abroad. But of course, living in Europe is expensive and you need to have a job to pay your bills. Could you tell just a little bit, even not being in our agenda, because it might be interesting to hear that?
No problem at all. I think, yes, well, that was my path. So it allowed me to have a path where I just came with my savings and tried life. So even to make it happen, I started as a waitress to make sure that my savings will will help me for longer. As well, obviously the difference between Brazilian reais and pounds is quite big. So that allowed me that leap of faith. And to try to find a job and to go through all that process while already in the UK. And I appreciate that for other people without a passport, or some sort of visa that's not a working visa, you have to plan it better from Brazil.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point.
So it's different. Like, I think I could just push myself and be here and give it a go. But that wasn't easy as well. Like, many people don't go through that process to the point where they can stay here and especially establishing themselves in a proper professional market, if I can say.
Yeah. How long did it take for you to move from working as a waitress to work in you are a marketeer, right? To work in your field?
Yeah, because at that in time I had already made the transition in Brazil because I was already working for SAP when I left. But you're right, like my background is in marketing or in advertisement, to be more specific. So when I made the transition, I actually used both of those experiences. I went to a market tech here in here in London, and it took me like 4 or 5 months.
It was quite fast then.
Yeah, well, it wasn't easy, to be very honest. I was on that moment where I was thinking, wow, will this happen or not happen? Because in London, especially, it's a little bit of a numbers game. And it's a numbers game for both sides. Like, there are so many opportunities, but there are also so many people around.
Yeah.
And the
qualified people, right?
Qualified people. No, London, the level in London is something unbelievable.
Yeah.
So the number of times that you almost make it again, etc., until we start to hack the system and understand what they are looking for, how to behave, how to present yourself, all this type of things, especially the cultural side of things, not just the language.
And since you were working on SAP before, you already had contact with the English language in your daily basis.
Not eventually, because most of the projects that I was involved were in Brazil with Brazilian companies.
All right.
So I had it eventually, but not on a daily basis, I would say.
Okay.
There's that as well, because I think, and this is also the purpose of this podcast, that you have to push yourself and not underestimate your English skills.
Yeah.
But on the same time, when you are really there, trying to make it happen, you understand that there are certain things you assumed you would get it that you don't.
Yeah.
And in my case, my English was basically a more Americanized English, and then coming to the UK, I had that transition to make as well.
Yeah, and it's really nice to hear you speaking, because it's kind of a mix of the American style with the English style as well. So it's really interesting.
I've never made an effort to make a British accent, but you want to be understood by people.
Exactly.
So you naturally mimic, and all my baseline is an American baseline, as it's the most common thing in Brazil.
Yeah,
so obviously
for sure.
It's a little bit of a blend of everything.
Yeah,
including a strong Brazilian accent that I.
Of course.
I don't mind. Like, people sometimes they say, "Oh, I'm very proud that people cannot identify where I'm from." Like, I try to pronounce things nicely, but yes, I'm from Brazil. I have a Brazilian accent.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Exactly, and especially for us who live in Europe, where there are so many countries where English is not their mother language, and they also have their own accent. So it's not a problem to have an accent, as far as you understand what others are saying. You made you understandable as well. I think that's the goal. Gi, why don't you tell us why London? There are so many places in the world. Why did you choose London?
London is amazing. Like,
it's one of my favorite cities in Europe, but I wanted to hear your story.
It is beautiful. It is amazing. It is such a melting pot of different cultures, different working styles, different industries as well. Obviously, finance and technology is major. Here is one of the biggest finance capitals of the world. But it's not just that. Like, as I said, I started in MarTech, connected to the printing industry. Actually, logistics is big, etc. And that gives you the opportunity to meet people from all sorts of backgrounds. But when we say backgrounds, many times we think about countries, but also then industries, education, and all of that. It is an amazing hub for traveling. Like, Heathrow is, I think, is the biggest airport in Europe. So you have so many flights, all sorts of flights, train connections, even internationally from London. Also, I wanted to come to the UK because British pound is quite of a strong currency. And as I love traveling, that makes a difference. Like, when you can earn in a strong currency. If living here is expensive, like, you can make the most out of your savings. I think these are obviously the job market here is super hot for tech. Many people don't. I also didn't think initially about that, but then when I started to research and to understand better how Europe especially was structured, because in principle I had already decided that I wanted to come to Europe. So the question was where in Europe. Then I could see how many opportunities there were in London and how hot is the market here.
Okay.
It's basically, then it's a beautiful city. It's stunning.
So actually this can very well connect with the next question, which is, what do you like the most in London and in UK in general? And also what you don't like there? If there's something you don't like, I imagine there's.
Well, they're always, right? They're always. I love this melting pot that I just mentioned. Have close friends. Like one of my best friends is from Iran, for example. Like how would I even imagine that me and her will have so much in common and all of that? So that makes such a big difference, and it is even shaping the person that I am becoming. And I really love, especially London, because of that. I think there is something in the British culture about craft, about things being made properly, that I really like, about the politeness that sometimes people see as a formality and even as a distance, but there is a certain respect in the way that British people like refer to each other, treat each other, that makes such a big difference on a daily basis, on how you approach about being kind and all of that. And I love all of that in London and in the UK. What I don't like here, well, London competitiveness has a dark side as well, can be tough. London is a grinder, like the pace is fast, and it can be quite stressful. People talk a lot about the weather. I think I have sometimes an issue with the darkness more than everything over winter, and so we don't realize how north the UK actually is. So like the days can be short over winter, and I think I will never get over that. I think.
But then you can run away to the south of Europe whenever you want. I mean, when you have vacation.
No, you are totally right. I think there is another thing that is. Many people come to London, and this is amazing too, about like meeting new people and making friends and all of it. But many people don't stay in London. So you get attached to people and they come and go, and that can be disheartening sometimes. So this is also tough for the ones that remain.
I was talking to a friend this weekend who lives in Czech Republic, and he mentioned exactly that. Like he had so many friends before, but they come and go, and he's losing his friends, and then he misses them because they're not living there anymore. Some came back to Brazil, some of them decided to go to another place, and I can imagine how that can be. What's your favorite place outside the UK, G?
What's my favorite? Obviously, Porto Alegre will always have a special place in my heart, right? Like that's where I went to the uni, have so many friends and places that are important, to me. I think, like if we think about an emotional connection, I love going to Governador Celso Ramos in the Santa Catarina seaside, as well. Like it is a place of peace for me. But when I think about, let's say exciting places, it can be a little bit of a cliche, but Paris has a place in my heart. Also have a few French friends. This is another connection that I would never guess that would happen in my life, and I think Paris is amazing to visit. The French culture is a thing on itself to not be underestimated. Like one thing is to go there and to participate, and the other thing is try to fully living there. I don't know if I would be able to, but like Paris is so impressive.
I was in Brussels last weekend, where I met with this friend that I just mentioned. and in there they speak French as well, besides Dutch and another language. And that part can be very tough when people don't speak English, and then you have to communicate, trying to communicate with someone who doesn't understand you well or doesn't speak the language very well. But I love Paris as well. It's another huge city in Europe as well. And you living in London, I imagine that you like big cities, maybe.
I do. Well, Amsterdam, where you lived, is an amazing place, and it's a place where, as you did for quite a few years, you can live in English.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. Paris is not exactly a place like that. You lose a lot if you don't speak French to a very decent level.
Yeah, but even saying that you can live in English in the Netherlands, I at least didn't felt part because of the language. Because although everyone speaks English, like now that we are living here in Spain, we feel very part of the country because we understand everything everyone is saying. We can read everything that is out there or in letters and everything. So yeah, this actually was one of the reasons why we decided to move from a place where we don't speak their native language to a place where we do speak the language. There is a classic question that we ask every guest in this podcast. And the question is if there is any embarrassing language or accent related moment that you could share with our audience.
Yes, I thought about that. I have one. It is a more of a cultural one than proper language. So
no worries. It can be just an embarrassing moment if you prefer.
Yeah. So it was, I think it was for sure my first year here in the UK and my first job. So someone that wasn't my line manager, but he was senior to me. He was checking my work or making a review, and he said, if I were you, I would do this. What I thought, yeah, great, you're not me. And I think this idea is absolutely stupid, but it's just obviously in my head. Ignored that and followed my life, right? A couple of weeks later, my line manager came and said, hey, Gio, you had this conversation with John, etc. He asked you for this thing. I don't remember anymore. It wasn't a big of a deal. I just didn't think it was a good idea. And then I told him, no, he didn't. I told my line manager, no, he didn't ask me. Oh, he did? He told me that he did. Are you sure? And I was like, no, he told me if he was me, he would do this. And then we laughed, and he understood that actually I didn't get the expression and the politeness that person was treating me.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. There is another question which we don't ask every guest, but it was asked to me when I was interviewed by my co-host in the podcast, and it was slightly different. Since you live in London, I decided to make a small change in the question, which would be, if you could have a 5 o'clock tea with 3 influential people, who would they be?
Yeah, I had to study for this one. I'm not so good, I think, with famous people, but I was
it doesn't need to be famous. It's just someone that is influential for you, I mean.
Yeah, so 3 people that I think are very interesting, and I also thought that could have a good conversation because they, in a certain way, they have some overlaps. So I am a big fan of a scientist called Miguel Nicoleles, that is a Brazilian neuroscientist who lives in the US and works with all these sorts of exoskeleton and neural connections, not just inside of our brains, but between brains and machines and between brains. He's one of the biggest candidate Brazil ever had for a Nobel Prize. And he's awesome. He's super down to earth type of guy from São Paulo, a Palmeiras fan, and a proper scientist, and also an expat, like a Brazilian who built a very successful career, in his case, in the US.
Yeah.
I think I would bring Simone Biles. I think she is amazing, one of the biggest athletes in human history. Like what she does in gymnastics is amazing. She is powerful. She is smart. She's doing it at the age of 27 on a type of sport where you are basically over at the age of 20, and she's there like winning medals and all of that. I think she's so interesting, and I would love to have a conversation with an athlete on that level, so it's a scientist on that high level, an athlete that is like a multi-golden medalist, like I don't know even how many does she have. And this also it goes together with Nicolelis, because he works with athletes as well, like understanding like how to perform, how groups perform, what is the type of brain that they have, and all of that. And the third one that I thought is Michelle Bachelet. So she was president for Chile twice, and a strong activist for human rights for the UN. Very strong on the feminist cause. So all the like atrocities that happens to women across the world. So she works trying to solve it or to improve that side of things. A woman in politics, twice president in Latin America. Someone who went through a communist regime, was tortured, and all of that. So I think she has a very interesting profile. As Nicolelis, she's also a physicist, so has also this background in medicine. As Simone, she also is in this more feminist cause. And empowering, like to empower women across the world. So I thought that would be an interesting tea table. I don't know what they would want to talk to me, but what I would do on that table, but I think they would have good fun among themselves.
Yeah, I am pretty sure they would have a good time with you as well. And it's nice that you mentioned like different people in different areas, but you brought the connection between them as well, which I found very nice.
And I think it is I always want to meet and to see how people who perform in such high levels are. Like they look like superhumans for me. It's like, okay, how are they?
They're just normal people who did something different than most of the people do, right? For that, I recommend a book that I read recently called "Talent is Overrated," which talks about you don't born with talent, you develop it through your life. And the author mentioned many different like people who are top in their field, being in music, in sport, or in finance or anything. It's a really interesting book. I highly recommend it.
Cool, I'll take note.
There is another question that I decided to bring here because nowadays artificial intelligence is such a big theme. Do you have any comments on the impact of AI in today's society?
I think we are still in prehistory. This is a field that Nicolelis really likes. The guys from Neuralink were his PhD students. So he was actually a professor for them. So I love that he says that at this point, the biggest success is still in marketing, because artificial intelligence is not artificial because it's made by humans that are organic, nor intelligent because the intelligence is also characteristic of the organisms, not the machines. But I think we're in prehistory, and we are just starting to see the power of analyzing data in a different level that is hard for us human beings. But I'm not a futurologist, but I think it will be huge. Like we start to see things in logistics. So when we talk about all the driverless machines, vehicles that we will have, especially lorries, trucks, and so we're not even talking about transporting people, but that or ships, and so I think it's such a huge impact on how we live. I was thinking about, so I was born in the 80s, so I saw the computer arriving to my house, and I remember like talking to my dad about how his life changed, like when computers became fashionable, like not something that everyone could have, and the massive transformation that it was, that we don't realize sometimes. I honestly think we will go through another one of those with AI when it really picks up. The other thing that I think it's amazing, it is because we already went through a digital revolution where everyone has a smartphone. That is part of a reasonably powerful machine, and we talk about everyone. It's like you can go to all communities of the world, like people that live in very difficult conditions. You go there, you probably will find a smartphone in one of their houses, or at least in the neighborhood, a few of them. And AI is making its way to that machine, those machines as well. So you will be making it accessible for everyone. So everyone will have access to it, will be able to make use of it. So what can people create? How can people behave and transform their own lives? I think this will be really, really amazing. There is a dark side of this conversation, right? That is about, okay, there's always that concern about jobs. And I think with AI, where things can become a little bit more complicated, it is, I think, to really leverage it, you need a certain educational level. So to make a living out of it, not just to use it as a consumer. You need to understand it better, and having access to that type of education is something that can be complicated. So this can create a gap between who can have that type of knowledge, not the knowledge of using the AI. That is simple. But the knowledge about how to leverage it, and who can't, and that can be something quite concerning, I think. But it's coming.
It's there. It's already there.
It's already there. Like, society didn't really change because of it yet. So that's why I say that I think it's still prehistory. But we can see it picking up.
Yeah, but I think you made a very fair point. And out of curiosity, do you use AI in your I mean, when working? And if you do, could you share like for what, or even outside of work?
For work, just experimenting a thing here and there, not properly. We have some, because I work for fintech, and finance is heavily regulated, and we work for banks, so we go for all the regulations. They are a little bit behind on that discussion. So it's not that it's restricted. There's a lot of stuff being analyzed, so we can implement it in our systems. So obviously we can test here and there with a presentation and this type of thing. But I've been testing with recipes. For example, like it is helping me with connecting cooking skills to improve my health. So I ask for recipes with a couple of ingredients, characteristics in terms of macros, and see what is giving me back. So I think at this point is where I am using it more in my personal life. I have more than AI. I think I use some more automations. And I think sometimes we underestimate how much automation is actually making already an impact in society. You don't need to go like as far as AI. Like just having my Alexa with my alarm clock telling me the weather, the news, the traffic, all automatically in London, and I already like start my day and my agenda in a different way. And this is not even AI; it's just automation, but like already put me in the right mood, in the right mindset to start my day, and all of that. It's and even with the AI, something that is changing on my consumption is I have been listening to the machines more. Like I used to read the news or read this or read that and consume information through reading, and now I've been consuming much more information through listening because of that.
Yeah, another huge impact that AI is making, since you mentioned just that, is for people, for example, who are blind, and they can see something, they can upload a picture and ask the prompt to tell them what is in that picture, and they can see the picture without seeing it, which I think it's a very, very nice thing that, like you mentioned, about making things accessible to people, to more and more people. And this is something that it's something that I've been studying a little bit, and I thought it was connected to what you said.
A friend of mine that I will not name, also because not a famous person, she used ChatGPT to help her with the annual appraisals for her colleagues. So she basically gave it a more informal explanation about her view on those people. She set the tone that she would like. To certain people more formal, to certain people formal but friendly, etc. And then got back a more polished version that she's sure that people received much better than, even obviously she didn't work so hard in terms of polishing her initial draft because she applied AI to it. But she said, even if I would have done it by myself, I am sure will not get to that level, because then it was quick, she was natural, and then just made a few tricks at the end. And for people who have to like go through like 10, sometimes 12 appraisals, etc., it is a lot of work, and you start your first one super like careful, like very detailed, etc. And for the last one, you are a little bit tired. So she said I also managed to give everyone a fair
That's
share of
nice.
my energy.
I used that when I left my last job. I wanted to give like a goodbye message to specific people, and AI helped me on build that, and I reviewed and I adjusted to make it more like me. But it's a really good helper, I would say.
And even especially for us that are working in second language, right?
Sure.
Like it gives you some ideas that will not come to you automatically. And what I love about it is that, okay, once I saw that format,
you learned, and then you Exactly.
So I learned from it.
I remember when I was watching a documentary about so OpenAI, before ChatGPT and everything, they did some studies with I don't remember the name of the game, but it's like a game similar to chess, and they brought like the world champions, and they made it play with the AI. And it's so interesting how much you can learn from the AI. So like it's not just the AI learning with what you are telling it, but also how much you can learn, because at some point the AI made a movement that not even the world championship would think about. It would think it was a stupid movement. And in the end, the AI won the game. So he learned that he could go through a different path and still have some advantages. So it's really nice
I
how
think
much we can learn from it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like some people say, no, this will make people more stupid, etc. I think that is silly. It's the other
Yeah.
way around, because it helps you to elevate the level of what you are doing quickly,
Yeah.
so you can use your energy to bring it to even greater standards.
Yeah.
Like it is, I don't know, it's like, you know, when you have these bikes and you have an electric bike that is
Yeah.
also like a manual, if you can say something like that, and then if you are tired at a certain point, you can use for that boost, and like it's for you to operate.
For sure, exactly. Before, I'm having such a good time talking to you, G. Before I ask you for your final message, is there anything that you would like to, like I've been asking the questions, is there anything you would like me to answer?
I think I think I would like I think I'd like to ask you about your journey on not just working in foreign language, but now also on becoming a communicator in it. Is it different than a normal day of work?
I think so. I think it is a bit different, and I would say that I am always learning. Like, if I look back when I started doing lives on YouTube, for instance, or even before, when I started recording videos to YouTube in 2015, and if I look to the videos that I do record nowadays, like in the very beginning, I would just open YouTube for a few seconds, play a music that I like as the intro, and pause and then start talking. And nowadays, I try to do it like in a more professional way. But the way I used to talk to people in front of the computer when I'm doing a live or a podcast or anything, I used to talk as if I was talking to many people. Nowadays, I try to say that, like in English, it doesn't make a lot of sense because you can be singular or plural. But when I speak in Portuguese, I say you just to a specific person and not to everyone. So I don't say, hey, everyone anymore. Sometimes I do actually, but I try to, connect more, because I had a professor in the uni who used to give a lecture to 60 people, and you as a student, you would listen to him as if he was talking just to you, which was just awesome. So, and in the beginning, I wouldn't do like scripting of some things that I want to say because I don't want to forget. Then I started doing it. After a while, I kind of got used to the script, so I don't need to read to it anymore because it's already part of the way I do things. But yeah, I'm always learning, trying to be a better communicator. I think it's very important for the things that I do, which are especially content creation in many different forms. I also encourage people who follow me to not only be a good communicator speaking, but also writing. And then you mentioned like technologies like ChatGPT can help us with that. I've been using Grammarly since 2017, which is using AI before ChatGPT came, to set the tone and this kind of things. And it helped me a lot. It grew my vocabulary a lot. Yeah, that's what I can think about.
And do you think you are a different communicator in English and in Portuguese? Do you see noticeable differences?
I don't think that much anymore. In the past, for sure. Nowadays, of course, there is still a gap because Portuguese is my modern language. But like nowadays, I think I can communicate very well in English, especially if I'm talking about my expertise field. What I want to achieve is the same level in Spanish at some point as well. Which I
know that sometimes I feel I have different personalities accordingly to the language I speak.
That's funny.
I feel I'm quite direct. Well, I am more direct in the way I speak in Portuguese, but like when I work, I am more concise in English.
Yeah.
For a reason. And
I think English is a more concise language. Like it has less words than Portuguese. You can make verbs of words that you wouldn't imagine. But yeah, I think so. Gi, do you have any final message to our audience here? It's been lovely talking to you.
I think, well, as for the purpose of this podcast, that is to show to people that we can have a great conversation, and this could be absolutely the same thing on a professional setting as well. Just to encourage people to give it a go, and like to not be so conscious about your mistakes or your accent or anything like that. As far as you know what you're bringing to the table, that is what really, really matters. And as you practice, it naturally will evolve, as you said. Like you brought your comms to this, like English and Portuguese comes almost to the same level. Now you are bringing Spanish up as well, and people who work in an international setting care much less about being absolutely grammatically perfect and all of that. Like, especially in English, you bring people together to what we can achieve together, what we are here, what is your knowledge, and we all make an effort to extract the best. Like, yeah. I think the international community has a lot of that. It's much more fun than people think it is. And I think especially Brazilians have this concern. I see people from other countries really throwing themselves into meetings, into decision discussions and all of that with a very basic English, but they make sure they deliver the value that they want to deliver, and that is what it counts.
Yeah.
And as a very final thing is, I know that this is easier said than done, and that you have to go through the process of feeling embarrassed, of feeling concerned, of all of that, to feel on your own skin that doesn't matter that much. But yeah. Once you go through that phase, you get over that attrition and you start to fly. Yeah. You have so many amazing things that happen, so many doors that open to it. Worths it. It really, really worths it.
So it's part of the process, right? Yeah.
It's part of the process, and you're not the only one who felt that way or who is feeling that way. And even like we have been, both of us, working in professional settings in English for quite a few years at this point. And now and then you catch yourself a little bit panicking, embarrassed, thinking, oh, I'd like to have given them a better impression.
And you can do the same in your own language, right?
Exactly. This is what we forget, that we also have those moments in Portuguese, exactly. But we just blame the second language. Yeah. So give it a go. I
love the final message. Giovana, thanks a lot for being here. Thank you also for listening to the podcast. If you like it, don't forget to share the link with someone else who would like to hear this conversation. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast was edited by Ralf Carneiro.